showed, and after about 10 minutes, that pin got bigger and bigger. Gentleman picked me up, and we walked out. He said, there's right or left. Let's go left. We went up into light, kept walking along. Some other people were with me. Then we went down an escalator that wasn't moving. Then there was maybe 7 people with me. As we went down, we were told to go up because probably we had an underground passage to an obstacle that was at the top. As I went up, now there was only 5 people with me. One guy went his own way. The policeman went to get him, and he disappeared. Now there was only 4. We went to another area, and then there was another policeman came. He went to an emergency and said, stay here. One guy left. Then there was only 2 of us. And one guy said, I'm going to go through that door. It wasn't a door. It was really broken glass. And he went, and I went about 20 feet behind him, and he disappeared. And that was the eerie thing. Of all those people I was with, they disappeared. When I stepped out into the plaza, there was nobody. It was like the last man on earth, except for about 4 inches of white soot, looked like snow. It was really ash, I guess. And I walked through it, and I saw nobody until I had reached, I guess, 100 yards from the building, and things were falling down, and there were pockets of fire all around. And it wasn't until I reached about that 100 yards that I began to see another human. And I walked up to Nassau Street and started to make a call to my wife, and just then there was another, and another part of the building collapsed, and this black roar came back again and turned the day absolutely black. So I had turned the corner, threw myself on the ground, and waited a second time for the blackness to stop. And finally, again, there was a little pin of light, somebody's voice asking me to stand up, and I stood up in the dark and imagining, okay, this is Nassau Street. Now there's going to be a cross. You're going to go down a curb, go up. I saw the light get larger and larger. He came and got me, and we went into a store. And there were 5 or 6 people there. One guy gave me his T-shirt. I looked like somebody had poured black plaster of Paris all over me. I couldn't swallow, spit out black. And then I was told to walk up to Beekman Hospital. But as I started walking up, I got as far as the federal court house, and the police captain said, you can't go up there. They put me in front of a hydrant, poured water all over me, took me up to a triage center. Police up there washed me.
Mr. Leshy, yes. Mr. Leshy, we have to interrupt your chilling account, and we thank you so much, but we have to go to the Secretary of State now. Colin Powell's beginning a news briefing.
Last several hours since I spoke to the press this morning. Let me begin once again by saying that our hearts go out to all the victims and to their families. It is a tragedy, but as the President has made clear, it is a tragedy that we are strong enough to overcome. Our spirits will not be broken. The resilience of this society will not be broken. We will find out who is responsible for this, and they will pay for it. We are undertaking a full court press diplomatically, politically, militarily, and in the course of the morning and early afternoon, I have been in touch with a number of foreign leaders and international organizational leaders to coordinate the diplomatic approach to this. I have talked to Kofi Annan, Secretary General of the United Nations, and I thank the United Nations for the Security Council resolution they passed, and also for the statement from the General Assembly, and I expect the General Assembly to also work on a resolution later today. Lord Robertson in NATO is hard at work with resolution that is under consideration now that would tee up, if I can put it that way, prime Article 5 responsibilities. Article 5 of the Charter says that an attack from abroad by any one against any member of the alliance is an attack against the alliance. If that resolution goes forward, that doesn't invoke Article 5 yet, but it puts in a position to be invoked when the United States makes a judgment about the nature of the attack and where that attack came from. And I appreciate what Lord Robertson and his colleagues are doing for us. I've also been in touch with Foreign Minister of Belgium, Louis Michel, who is also head of the presidency of the EU at this time, and High Representative Javier Solana, to thank them for the strong support we have received from the European Union and the statements they have made and their cooperation promise to us to deal with this tragedy and to move forward. I've also attended, along, of course, with my other colleagues, a National Security Council meeting with the President where we reviewed all that has happened and began to make our plans for the efforts we will be taking in the future, not only to bring these perpetrators to not only justice but to the punishment they deserve, but at the same time to undertake a worldwide effort to build a coalition against all forms of terrorism, wherever it may occur and however it rears its ugly head. This will be a major priority of the administration, and I can assure you it will therefore be a major priority of the State Department. I have also, in the course of the day, spoken to Foreign Minister of Great Britain, Germany, Canada. I have spoken to Foreign Minister Perez twice, Prime Minister Sharon, Chairman Arafat, and Foreign Minister Manley of Canada, if I didn't mention that, Foreign Minister Ivanov of Russia, Foreign Minister Ruggiero of Italy, and I have another number of other calls that are in the process of being made so that we can bring all of this together. And I must say I am deeply touched by the expressions of support I have received from my colleagues. And as I think you all know, the President has been very busy, and I'm sure the White House has announced his 2 phone calls to President Putin as well as to Mr. Chirac, Jiang Zemin, President Jiang Zemin, Prime Minister Blair, Chancellor Schroeder, and Prime Minister Chrétien. So he's spoken to all 5 members, other 4 members of the Security Council, permanent members of the Security Council. And I will leave it to my other cabinet colleagues to talk about the issues under their purview over at Defense, Justice, and FBI. There are, of course, lots of reports and rumors out there, and I think it is wise for all of us to take many of these reports and rumors into some context and perspective. This is also a time, of course, in that regard, for the American people to try, in this time of tragedy, to restore the society to a sense of normalcy. We've got to get back to our jobs. We've got to get back to work. And I know that Secretary Mineta, as soon as it is possible and as soon as it makes sense and is safe, will restore the air traffic system, and commercial air traffic will be brought back online, and I will wait for him to make those announcements with respect to that, and I know that's very much on your mind. Once again, we're building a strong coalition to go after these perpetrators, but more broadly, to go after terrorism wherever we find it in the world. It's a scourge not only against the United States, but against civilization, and it must be brought to an end. I will be delighted to take a few questions.
Secretary, the State Department has been advocating restraint in response to terrorism with the argument that violence only provokes more violence. It's an endless cycle. I wondered if the U.S. will be guided by its own admonition now that the U.S. has been horribly attacked by terrorists.
I think when you are attacked by a terrorist and you know who the terrorist is and you can fingerprint back to the cause of the terror, you should respond.
But
Andrew?
I mean, should it be a limited response or?
You should respond, whether it's limited or other than limited. You should respond to those who did it, and if you are able to stop terrorist attacks, you should stop terrorist attacks. Andrea?
Secretary Powell, one country you didn't mention was Pakistan, and I understand that your deputy has spoken with the ambassador to Pakistan, and that this evening the U.S. ambassador to Pakistan will be meeting with General Musharraf. What specific steps are you asking Pakistan to take, and have you at all insinuated that if all signs do lead to bin Laden, that the U.S. would take military action against Pakistan and Afghanistan?
Our ambassador is going to be seeing going to be having that meeting that you made reference to. It'll probably not be this evening, more likely tomorrow as a result of schedule problems. But Ambassador Armitage, Deputy Secretary Armitage, did meet with Pakistani officials today, and really to share views. We have not made a determination yet as to who is responsible for yesterday's attack. But we thought, as we gather information and as we look at possible sources of the attack, it would be useful to point out to the Pakistani leadership at every level that we are looking for and expecting their fullest cooperation and their help and support as we conduct this investigation and as we generate more information, and to see if they can be helpful in generating information, as well as how helpful they might be if we find a basis to act upon that information. So yes, we are doing what you described with the Pakistanis. Robert?
Just to clarify, when you say you're building a strong coalition to go after the perpetrators, does this mean that you are expecting or hoping that other countries will participate in some kind of military retaliation?
Under Article 5, if we go that far and it actually is executed, then there is an obligation on the part of our NATO allies to assist if we go in this direction. It doesn't mean that they necessarily will participate in the attack, but it makes it easier to obtain support in the way of overflight rights and things of that nature. So but I don't want to get into what we might or might not do and who might go with us and who might not go with us, because that's just too speculative at the moment.
Can I follow that? Having been through the Gulf War as you were, would you hope to build a kind of coalition that extends perhaps beyond NATO and includes perhaps Muslim nations from
Yes,
different parts of the world?
It should include Muslim nations. Muslim nations have just as much to fear from terrorism that strikes at innocent civilians. And I do have a number of calls, and I just haven't connected yet with other leaders in the world representing Muslim populations. As I was coming down, I was waiting to receive a call from Amr Moussa, head of the Arab League, and I'll also be talking to my Egyptian colleagues and Jordanian colleagues before the evening is out. Yes, sir.
You have not yet mentioned the point that President Bush made last night, the idea of holding other countries responsible.
Yeah.
This seems to be a dramatic escalation in the U.S. view on how it responds to terrorism. Is that a correct interpretation of it? And as a follow-up, you talk about returning to normal, yet there have been all these mentions of acts of war, the idea that the country is in a war. How can we just return to normal when in a situation like this?
Well, on your first point, I mentioned in my earlier statements, and I will mention it again, that it's not just a matter of going after the perpetrators, but it's going after and dealing with the sources of support that they have, whether that source of support might come from a host country or other organizations that provide them. We have to make sure that we go after terrorism and get it by its branch and root. And so we will hold accountable those countries that provide support, that give host nation, if you can call it that, support and facilities to these kinds of terrorist groups. Now, yes, we believe that acts of war have been committed against the American people, and we will respond accordingly. But at the same time, life has to go on. In all of the difficult times we will be facing ahead, we have to still try to return life to a sense of normalcy. We cannot be a people who are afraid to live. We cannot be a people who will move away from a relatively open society. We cannot be a people who walk around terrified. We're Americans. We don't walk around terrified. We're going to be strong in this difficult period, and we're going to move forward with pride and with determination, and we will get our society back to normal with whatever additional precautions, nevertheless, might be necessary to secure our society without locking ourselves down. Yes, sir.
Secretary Powell, yesterday Senator Graham said that in response to the attacks he would be willing to reassess the ban on assassinations of foreign leaders. And I was wondering, would you support such a reassessment?
The ban is an executive order, and we have not made such a reassessment, and I'll just leave it there. Jane?
India has said many times in the past that Pakistan is harboring terrorism and there are training camps in Pakistan, and now U.S. officials, including a number of lawmakers here on the Hill, are saying that Osman bin Laden have his training camps in Pakistan, and because he's sending all his, running his empire or terrorism empire from Pakistan. So now Is it time now to go after those countries who are harboring